Welcome to the Voices for Voices podcast, sponsored by Redwood Living. Thank you for joining us today. I am Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices, host and humanitarian. You can learn more about Voices for Voices on our Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, where our handle is @VoicesForVoices, and also on our website, voicesforvoices.org. Voices for Voices is a 501c3 nonprofit charity organization. We survive solely on donations. So if you're able to, please consider heading over to voicesforvoices.org to help us continue our mission and the goal and dream to help 3 billion people over the course of my lifetime and beyond. Or you can also send a donation to the mailing address of Voices for Voices at 2388 Beckett Circle, Stowe, Ohio, 44224. And we're also on the Cash App, and you can reach us for a donation at Voices for Voices. Are you or somebody you know looking for a volunteer opportunity? If so, you can reach out to us today via email at president@voicesforvoices.org. Now, I founded Voices for Voices to provide a platform for folks to share their stories with others as we work to break the stigma around mental health, accessibility, and disabilities, while also helping people get the help they need and also helping prepare and or transition into the workforce with the Voices for Voices Career Center, where we connect talent with opportunity for job seekers and employers from coast to coast and in every industry and job level. And who can forget about merchandise? The Voices for Voices merchandise shop is up and running at voicesforvoices.org/shop, where shipping is always free. Again, all donations are 100% tax deductible. And lastly, before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to announce the third annual A Brand New Day Gala fundraiser, which is going to be held on Friday, October 13th, 2023, from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. It will be held at the Leona Ferris Lodge, which also can be referred to as the Silver Springs Lodge. And this will be at the address of 5027 Stowe Road, Stowe, Ohio, 44224. And you will have seen our keynote speaker on a previous episode of the Voices for Voices podcast, Mr. Dan Flowers. He's the president and CEO at the Akron-Canton Regional Food Bank. And we're also going to be giving this year's 2023 Voices for Voices Ambassador of the Year award to the Honorable Judge Allison Breaux. She works in the Summit County Court of Common Pleas and works with the Hope Court as a founder in the felony area. We're going to have music. We're going to have American Sign Language interpretation, English, from our Kent State University sign language interpreters that join us from time to time as their class schedule allows. We're going to have raffle baskets. We're going to have artwork. And it's going to be all around a great time. It will be in person as well as live streamed throughout the world like our past two have been. Tickets for this are $150 per person, or a table of 6 is $750. So if you or your organization is interested, you can find more information on our website, voicesforvoices.org, or you can also check that out on one of our social media platforms. And again, all donations, all ticket sales, raffle basket, ticket sales, donations are tax deductible, as Voices for Voices is a 501c3 nonprofit charity organization. So let's get into today's episode. I am pleased to be joined by Angel Dague. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Excited to talk to you, talk about your story, your experiences, how that began to change into more of a positive.
Yes.
And then give some inspiration to those not only here in Northeast Ohio, but we do have followers across the world.
That's
so
awesome.
there are going to be people that you're going to be touching and reaching on multiple levels: audio, video, TV, transcript. So do you want to maybe get into a little bit of your background, your history, maybe call it maybe the lower points, and
Yes.
I'll work our way up to.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely.
On April Fool's Day, I will be celebrating 15 years sober. So that's just been like so unbelievable for me.
Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you so much. So it started, I literally grew up in Hartville, Ohio. I think I might have been 5 when I moved there. And we had a pool in the backyard, and all the neighbors were family. And I never felt different until I found out that we were going to be transferred to Arizona, Flagstaff, Arizona.
Okay.
And it's the first time that I remember in my life feeling fear. And I was getting ready to turn 13. And I don't think I ever thought about it before, but like I had this like flaming red hair and freckles, and but like I said, I grew up with all the people that went to Lake with. And so fear came in, and at the time, I don't know that I really understood the power of the tongue. Definitely spoke much death over my life. I feared what the kids were going to think. I feared how I was, would I have friends? Would they think I'm ugly? Or we get out there, and my mom holds me out for probably a week before I go to school. It was a huge move for all of us. So anyway, we go, and she puts me in school, and all that stuff happened. And I got teased and bullied and called names, and I just remember really shrinking into myself. And I got introduced to alcohol, and they said it wouldn't be, I wouldn't feel like I felt. And it wasn't peer pressure for me. I didn't want to feel that way. And so I began to drink. I hated the taste of it. I would force it down, but it was the feeling after. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel ugly. I didn't feel all those things because I had took all the lies that people were telling me, and I shoved them deep inside of me, and I made that my truth. And so from that point, I met a guy who was, interested in some things that I shouldn't have been interested in that time of my life. And instead of saying no, I won't do those things, he told me if I didn't, then he'd find somebody that loved him, and I got afraid for him to leave. And so then my life pretty much got based on living in fear. I was afraid to lose things, so that I compromised. I compromised myself. I always believed in Jesus. I always knew he loved me. I just felt like he had better things to do than me. And so I kind of got way off the narrow path. So then I began drinking, and I began smoking marijuana. Eventually, I got introduced to crack. I did cocaine for a little while before that. My nose would bleed all the time, and instead of really thinking in my head like I should probably stop, my thinking was like I need to go to something I can do better, something that won't make my nose bleed, something, and I thought I could control everything. Okay. So I got on crack, and it got a little weird in the beginning. I wasn't really all the way in it, and I really feel today in my life that the enemy can really get a foothold by just doubt and showing something that may not be all the way truth. And so later on in my life, when I got back on crack, it took me to a level I never believed I could go to. So I got involved with boys, giving myself away, losing myself inside, becoming really empty, and just trying to grab what the world offered, trying to shove it inside of me, thinking that it would make me full, which what it did was make me empty. So I chased and chased and chased after the world. Pretty soon I had no self-worth, no self-esteem. I really literally talked down to myself all the time. So I met this guy, and we were gonna, live happily ever after. In some events of, him coming to get us, and we went to go to this watering hole that everybody went to in Sedona. made this bet. I bet he wouldn't come get us. He ended up showing up. I put myself on the line. I always bet myself. I always put myself out there. And I learned that giving myself away could give me the things that I thought I craved. But anyway, so he came and got us, and after we got done, we met up and went to this hotel, and I gave myself away. And 2 weeks later, I found out he was going to marry someone. I didn't even really know about it at the time. I can't say I was totally oblivious, but I didn't think they were going to get married. And it just brought me into a really deep, dark place. But my fear of leaving now wasn't afraid to lose him. My fear was his abuse and what he would do if I did leave him. So all my life, I've been in relationships that were either physically abusive or emotionally abusive. And emotionally abusive, I literally would want them to be physical abusive, because the stuff they would say would get inside of me and it would just rip me up, and I couldn't get it to, like, where physical things would heal, that wouldn't heal. And so I lived a life literally hating myself. So we ended up, he went to prison, and I literally went down to the county jail to marry this guy because his wife she got smart, I guess is the best way I can put it. She left. She was tired. And I married him, and then I moved to Tucson to be closer. And it was just a ray of just staying out of my mind all the time with mood-altering substances, still drinking even though I hated it. At this point in time, I wasn't back on crack yet, but I was doing ecstasy pills, you name it. I was taking whatever would keep me out of my mind. And during all this going on, I get a call from my dad, and he wanted me to move back to Ohio. And I was like, oh yeah, well, actually, let me back up. I first got a call from my mom. And sadly, my mom was the one that I used. I used the love that she had for me against her to get the things, because I had became self-centered and selfish. And I even lived that for a long time coming into sobriety. And it wasn't until the Lord truly got a hold of my heart for me to start really letting things die off of me. But anyway, so my dad called after my mom, because I was like, I don't really want to go back to Ohio. But when my dad called, me and my dad had struggled. My dad was raised in an verbally abusive home. So my dad only knew what to give, what he had been taught. I'm a firm believer you can't give what you don't have. And so we struggled in that area. But when he called to go back to Ohio, I thought, man, maybe my dad does love me. Because he did a lot of yelling and screaming for a long time. But anyway, all comes down. My dad says he's going to help me get a brand new car. So now I'm going to move to Ohio because that's going to fix me, right? Yeah. So I go through all these emotions, and during the time, I literally literally was supposed to meet my best friend before I went to this. I was going back to Tucson to sell a car that I had, and then I was moving back to Ohio. And at the time, this was back in the 90s, and I wish then I knew how to be a friend. Today I've learned through the Lord and His Word how to be a better person and how to let go of the things that were flesh and live in the Spirit. Not perfectly by any means. But anyway, she had AIDS, and I was afraid. And so instead of being where I was supposed to be, I avoided it, was going to see her on the way back. And while I was gone, she passed. That was a huge thing in my life. I remember being at her grave, and I remembered asking God if He could hear me. Let me educate me. I never wanted to ever walk away from someone. She needed me, and I wasn't there. I learned a lot through that, and fear is not a part of my life at all today. I don't need to fear. I just need to keep allowing the agape love of God to pour down into my heart, So I come back from Ohio, or from Arizona, and move back to Ohio, and I'm like, man, that's all over. I don't have to worry about those folks anymore. Yeah. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to live this great life. And I did. I brought me with me. And so I got to Ohio, and I started meeting the same kind of guys, different faces, getting involved in abuse, getting involved in all kind of things. And what I learned through, I remember somebody telling me every time I went to point, like, those folks, or they did this, they're like the fullest standing behind the three that are pointing back. And I'm just like, wow. Like I'm the problem. But it took years and years of addiction. But when I came back face to face with crack, it took me out. I got on my back and I couldn't get back on my feet. It took me to places I never dreamed I'd go. I know a guy, I met a guy that said he was going to protect me and he was going to help me and he was going to be my knight in shining armor. I was always looking for this knight in shining armor, someone to save me. And little did I know that Jesus had come and already done that for me. So I get connected up with this guy and he literally beat me and put me in my first car, and prostitution entered into my life at that time. And now I'm getting in and out of cars. And the things that happen in the streets and the rapes and all those things that combine in the abuse and the beatings, it did something, it broke something inside of me. I remember walking up and down Johnston Street or South Street or any of those streets that I used to walk when I was walking in the darkness, thinking, I'm gonna die, I'm just gonna die out here on crack prostituting. This is where I'm gonna die. And little did I know that God had different plans for me, which is like the whole reason my life is where it is today. Like nothing I've done except surrender and keep getting in the Word and keep building a relationship and growing closer to Christ. So in events, I end up in this place over by the, it used to be where they used to keep the Goodyear blimp.
Okay.
And I was with a guy that picked me up off the street. And all of a sudden, these cops just come and they surround us. And I just remember this is where God rescued me. And I didn't want to believe that for a long time. At that moment when it all happened, I thought, this is horrifying. I want to keep using. Now, I remember one night being out and I just lifted my hands up and I said, God, save me or kill me, but don't let me live like this anymore. And then I remember being in, getting arrested and saying, no, this isn't what I want, God. This isn't the way. I wanted to be saved, but I wanted it my way, and I'm not even sure what my way was. But anyway, this day, we end up and we get surrounded by all these police. And I remember stepping out the car, and God sent a chariot that day. It looked just like a Summit County paddy wagon. But he rescued me. It was March 31st of 2008. I had been so beaten down at this point, I think I literally was begging death to take me. And so I remember entering into the paddy wagon and just for the first time exhaling. But I also remember that they arrested the guy too. And he was like, there was this wall between us, but we were in this paddy wagon together. And I remember begging this guy to forgive me.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, wow, looking back at all my healing and all the things that I went through, there was none of me left inside. I was trying to, I don't know what I was trying to do, but everything was always my fault. I put the whole world on me. I woke up in the Summit County Jail on April Fool's Day of 2008, and I remember God saying it was over. I wasn't going to use anymore, and I didn't believe it. I thought, man, God, I don't think you know what you're talking about. Right. There's no way I'm going to leave here and not use drugs. And, the Bible says that he'll go before us. And he just started showing me all these things. And so we went to, I went 2 weeks in the Summit County Jail. God showed me all these God shots. I call them God shots. He would show me things that he was there and that he had my back. And I went over onto Glenwood Jail, and I remember doing a visit with my mom, the one person in this world that should have never believed anything I said. Yeah. And we were sitting about 6 blocks from each other you had to sit so many blocks on the floor. Okay. And I remember telling my mom, I know you're tired of me saying it, but this time I'm going to show you. And my mom looked at me and she said, and I said, I'm done, Mom. And she said, I know. And that was another God shot. Yeah. I needed somebody that was in my corner. And he picked my mom. Like, that was amazing for me. Time went on. I stayed in I stayed in the Glenwood Jail till, I think I did 190 days in there, and I went to a program called Legacy 3, ended up getting successfully discharged from there because these women that were at Legacy 3, they believed in me. I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, it had to have been God showing things in me that I couldn't see myself, but others could. And I just remember people saying over and over to me, you are going to help you're going to help women, lots of women. I thought, man, I don't even like women. I don't want to help women. I don't want to help anybody. I can't barely help myself. But the Lord had ignited in me when I rose off that bed on April Fool's Day in the Summit County Jail. It started a spark that is now a forest fire to help women trapped where I used to be. There's a way out, and his name is Jesus. And through this life that I've lived on this side of these 15 years, I've had to go to a lot of counseling. I've had to do a lot of things to heal and get better. I lost my dad on December 2nd, 2020 to COVID. I had to watch my dad suffocate to death on a video. And but I didn't want my dad to be alone, and me and my sister and my brother were there on video with my dad. Yeah. Any of those things could have been a reason to go back until I understood that this life don't belong to me, it belongs to God. And that I'm here to live out that life. And 4 days before my dad passed, he gave his life to Christ. I will see my dad again. I've lost a lot of people on this side. I work with women that were trapped where I used to be, and drugs are viciously taking thousands of people. I've lost some people that the world's different today without them. But I hope that their struggle is finally over. I love the Lord. He's the one that got me to where I'm at. There's no convincing me of anything different. So I work for a place called Rahab, and my thing that I tell them all the time when the ladies first come through the door that's never been there, you're stuck with us. Because I believe that family is what's going to help us all grow. I know that addiction is it's a problem, but it's also can be cured, and his name is Jesus. I know that he can do all things. I can do all things through Christ. I know that he's the only way. He's the light and he's the life. And although I'm not anywhere near perfect and never will be, I'm going to keep getting up, repenting, and going back to the face of God and walk out whatever it is that he has for my chapters here while I'm on this earth.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. Thank you for being so transparent and getting back in those emotions. I know it's not easy. And for those that may know somebody that may be in that dark place, that are on the fence of, should I go talk to somebody, should I not? What would be maybe those baby steps that would be, since you know it took multiple attempts to try for yourself.
Multiple.
What could you share that might be helpful? Maybe some signs and some little things that, okay, now looking back, if I didn't do this, and it might resonate with viewer, listener.
So there's a lot of things now that I wish I would have paid attention to back then. Where I picked up mood, mind altering substances only made my life much worse than the problem that I was facing. I think whatever we're brought to, God will bring us through. So for people that are struggling or people are out here trying to help other people, I believe the biggest thing to start with is prayer. We have to let the Lord intervene in the hearts to draw them towards him. But you want to be a listener. Listening was huge for me, that people would literally listen and not judge me for the life that I was living or that I was just coming out of. And even coming in, not holding yourself, don't hold guilt and shame inside yourself. Let that stuff go. Being alongside, be somebody that they know they have to walk forward with, and that was huge for me. My mentor, Becky, she was there. She listened, she walked with me, she got in the Word with me. She never judged how I had lived. That was huge for me. Right. I'd always had fingers pointed at me, and a lot of times it was places of people that claimed to be Christians. And that was really hard. But yeah, I would say to start praying and be that person, be their person. And don't give up on them. Don't give up on them, but don't enable them. Don't enable them.
Yeah, so the work you do now, how fulfilling is that to you, emotionally compared to where you were, where there was a lot of maybe emptiness and doing things for physical reasons and short-term gratification versus now the spiritual and emotional? How does that make you feel?
it makes me feel like a roller coaster I've never rode. It's up and down and through the valleys and up over the mountains, and because I'm in a place, I'm in a hood where there's a lot of death, but I'm also seeing Jesus literally picking people out of the ashes, out of the darkness, and setting their feet on solid rock. I'm seeing people being redeemed. I'm seeing people coming back to life. I'm seeing dead bones have life breathed back in them. And to be a part of just a little tiny part that God would even trust me to be with his daughters is a feeling that I can't even put my finger on. I don't even think there's words to explain. But wow, I'm thankful to God that he would trust me to be a part of being family with his daughters that are lost, and even ones that are coming to, and watching them get their kids back, and some of them get married, and some of them go back to school, and I mean I could go on forever, the things that I've seen. And the heartache's still real, losing the people because you love them. But you know, I've learned through this walk that I can't stay stuck. I have to keep helping the one that God puts in front of me.
Yeah, now it seems that you know that regardless if there's up and down the winding road, you know you're doing what you're meant to do.
No doubt in my mind.
Versus doing things for other reasons. And I think that's big, to do something that unfortunately took a lot of tough experiences for you to go through, but to get to that point, to do a job that you love, that when you wake up, you want to do it, versus something that, well, I'm doing it for the money, or I'm doing it for XYZ reason. And I think that's something to, I'd say, hang your hat a little bit on, because we also have job seekers and college students, and for them to not always look for the title, not always look for what's going to make them feel the best today and help them do one thing, but it's, okay, how do I see myself literally when I leave the world? How am I going to be thought of? And nobody lives forever. Nobody gets to take anything with them.
Nothing.
And I think that's huge for you to be able to share that, the emotional side of things, that there were days in the past where that wasn't there. And now that it is there, you're not letting that go. Yeah.
On my Facebook, it says where I work, hustling souls for Jesus.
Yes. And speaking of that, how can people, listeners, viewers, people reading the transcript, watching this on TV, how can they learn more about you and the work that you do, and follow you, if you don't mind, with some of that information?
No, I don't mind at all. No, my name is Angel Dague, last name Dague. I'm on Facebook. I can't even remember. I think I have a lion as my Facebook. I can't really remember. I change it so much. So that's a good way to get a hold of me. I'm always on there. I believe it should totally be used for encouragement, and just like what you're doing, asking people questions and having people share things and the struggles, but the redemption and the beauty that God brings through the darkness and brings you back into the light. My email is angeldague@yahoo.com. Absolutely. You can get a hold of me that way, and then through those ways, I can give my phone number. I don't really want to give it this way.
No, I don't. No, don't do that. Great. Well, Angel, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for sharing, kind of going back in time, and now you're reaching very soon that 15-year mark of being sober. And I know as somebody that's going on 6 years, it's awesome. Huge.
It is huge, very huge.
And it's not something that should be overlooked.
No, never. Not even if you have 24 hours. Celebrate every minute that you're sober.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Amen.
So thank you again for today.
Yeah, high five for Jesus.
Yeah.
Woo!
So we just want to thank everybody who has been with us for this episode of the Voices for Voices podcast. And we definitely want to give a special thank you to our guest, Angel Dague, and you can learn more about her on the platforms and contact information, and we'll include that in the show notes for you. So until next time, I am Justin Allen Hayes. I hope you have a great day and be a voice for you or somebody in need.